Hey, Joseph here from The Healthy Marriage. And to illustrate the marriage wheel, I have here just a very simple bicycle wheel. You can tell, in the very center there, you have the axle. I'll kind of move into focus there. That's the axle. And all of these spokes are connected to that center point, which in turns connects to the rim that the tire is on. So the wheel is actually connected all together by the one center point. And so we've talked about how on the marriage wheel that your spouse, your relationship is at the center. Now, I want to give a little disqualifier here. I was a pastor for many years, and I always use this illustration to talk about our relationship with God and how God needs to be at the center. And I believe that. I believe a marriage, because I am a Christian, I believe that a marriage is enhanced and by faith. And that's one of the shared values that my wife and I have together, is our shared faith. And it keeps us focused on an eternal purpose together. And so we work toward that end. But for the sake of this illustration, I want to say that your marriage and your spouse is at the center. And I hope you'll kind of give me some latitude there. I'm certainly not implying that we remove God from the center, but to make this point, let's put our spouse at the center. That's our marriage, our relationship. And all of these spokes are connected to the center. Now, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to drive home a point here. I'm going to pause the video and come right back. Okay, before we get into each of these items that I'm going to list on the marriage wheel, I want you to know that the reason the wheel can roll, the reason it can do what it does, is because there's something at the center, and all the spokes connect the outer rim to the center. That gives it balance, and that gives it functionality. It makes it function properly. The wheel couldn't roll without an axle at the center. So the reason I bring this up is because when we talk about these things that we're putting around the wheel, for example, you can see what I have here. If I can try to get a close-up, we've got time, our parents, kids, work, hobbies, friends, social media, internet, and back up to time. So I bring these in. There are so many things we could put around. In fact, if you'll notice on the wheel itself that I have, there's hundreds of little spokes there. These are just snapshots and things that we can relate to right off the bat. Everything should be connected to that centerpiece. So when we look at, let's take for example our time. The wheel compared to a list, we can say, well, I value time with my wife, and that could be, let's say that's number one on our list. And so we go down to hobbies, and hobbies, let's say it's number 6 on the list. The problem with the list is hobbies doesn't connect to time if we're looking at it as a ladder or as steps or as a list. But when it's connected to the marriage wheel and our relationship with our wife is at the center, then time is connected to our marriage. Hobbies is also connected to our marriage. So what this does is it eliminates us from saying with empty words, well, time with my wife is important to me and it's a priority in my marriage, but I spend more time on my hobby than I do my marriage. See, with a list, the two, maybe they don't even connect. But on a marriage wheel, when the marriage is at the center, time is connected to your relationship. If you really say your marriage is valuable to you, it's connected by the spoke of time to the wheel. And because of that, there's a connection. It's not disconnected. Another example would be over your social media and internet, to say, well, I value my spouse, But I use social media and the internet in a way that's disconnected from my marriage. Maybe I connect with someone from my past or someone from Facebook, or you get on a dating site or something like that. Well, you can say, well, no, I love my wife, but this is different. But see, on the marriage wheel, it's not different. You cannot disconnect it from your relationship. The same thing with friends or hobbies. At work, I can say, it's easy to say, no, I value my wife more than I do my work. But if I spend more time and energy, and not just time, but energy on my work or on my hobbies, then that list is null and void. But if it's connected to the marriage wheel, I'm going to keep my hobby and my work and my friends in balance because I keep my marriage at the center. So friends don't take priority over my relationship. They're part of my life, and you can't take them out of my life. But because my marriage is at the center, my friends are in balance. My parents are in balance. I run into a lot of couples who have a hard time in their relationship because they've never managed to move past a relationship with their parents as a child into adulthood. And there is a principle in Scripture where you leave your father and mother and cleave to your wife. And I believe that's not just biblical, that's common sense. If you want a strong, healthy marriage, there has to be a change in your relationship with your parents. It's not that you divorce your parents. It's not that you disconnect from them, but it's that you put them in the proper perspective. And to have good marriage balance on the marriage wheel, they have to have their place, but their place is not the center. Their place is one of the spokes. And the same with kids, and this is what trips a lot of people up. They focus on kids, and kids tend to move to the center, and then marriage doesn't work right because kids are not the center. Your relationship with your spouse, as far as we're talking about a marriage wheel, your spouse is the center and not your kids. And boy, for a generation that the generation after me has really struggled with that. I remember hearing James Dobson say back in the 1980s that he foresaw a generation come up that kids would become their gods, and it would replace the centerpiece of the marriage relationship, and kids would take the center. And so anyway, I use these, and I hope you understand that these things are important to us. I'm not suggesting they're not important, but they have their place, and their place is on the rim and on the wheel, but not at the axle point. And when you have it in proper perspective this way, all of these things work well and your life rolls along well. When you get it out of balance and you put the wrong thing at the axle, you kind of wobble through life and things don't ever seem to work, and you wonder why you can't have a good marriage. But you've got parents at the center, or work at the center, or time is out of whack, and you've got a flat tire and things don't roll properly because you haven't looked at things from this perspective. And so I hope this helps you get a mental picture that when we talk about the marriage wheel and we talk about having the right priorities, I'm not talking about a list. I'm talking about having everything that touches our life revolve around the core issues of, in my opinion, God at the center and your spouse at the center of the marriage wheel. And so I hope that helps you get a mental picture of how to order your priorities and structure your marriage. Again, it's not that these other things aren't important. They are. They're a big part of our life. But they have their place. But their place is not the center. So I hope that helps you.